what to look for when buying an old BMW 5 Series.
That fooled you. This is the car you associate with Jersey, Bergerac's famous Triumph Roadster. We're not here to look at classic cars, though. Later in the programme, we'll be tracing the amazing way that Jersey's developed as a motorsporting venue. But first, to more...
Design, they stack together when not in use, and they make ideal temporary dams and fish breeding containers in most of our local waterways. They also make excellent paint removers because, let's face it, their directional stability, especially when loaded, leaves a great deal to be desired.
Whoops. Well, this is one car that seems destined to have more than its fair share of shopping trolleys gouging down the side. It's Peugeot's new baby, the 106, and the Peugeot marketing whiz kids say that more than 65% of the 106 drivers are likely to be women. Now, that's hardly surprising when you consider that the Peugeot 205, the model that was introduced some 8 years ago and literally saved Peugeot from financial ruin, has always been a firm favourite with women.
The little Peugeot is aimed at the heart of the most important car segment in Europe, the small car market. In Britain, small cars took 26% of the total market last year, and their share is increasing. The vast majority of those, 2/3 in fact, were three-door hatchbacks, like this 106. Now, obviously, with such a huge market, there's going to be some intense competition. Bestseller in the sector is Ford's Fiesta, followed by Rover's Metro, the Peugeot 205, the Vauxhall Nova and the Nissan Micra. Those 5 cars make up more than 70% of the market, and it's those 5 the 106 has to crack if it's to succeed.
It's tempting to dismiss the 106 as yet another Euro buzzbox, but in fact it's a car with distinctive personality and it's great fun to drive. It doesn't have quite the same skateboard-like road holding of the 205, but it's very agile, holds on well in the corners and has more than adequate performance, a respectable top gear and a good 0 to 60 time. It's not enough to keep you ahead of the hot hatchback boy racers, but it's certainly more than enough to keep you fizzing around city streets, well up with the traffic.
There are 4 models in the range. This is the XR, fitted with the familiar 1124cc engine mated to a 5-speed gearbox. It's the same combination you find in the 205 and, incidentally, in Citroën's AX, a car which the companies swear blind is totally different to the 106, but in fact shares the same floor pan and over 1,000 components.
Very clean and neat design, but surely the stylists have done something wrong at the back end. Those rear light clusters, and especially the indicators, are just too small for modern traffic conditions. Lots of head, elbow and leg room inside the 106. The seats are very supportive and quite comfortable over long distances. And I particularly like the radio. It's been designed exclusively for the 106. That means there's no point in nicking it. It won't fit any other car. But one major grumble for a car allegedly designed with women in mind: whoever put in these ludicrous door handles? They're very stiff to operate. All the women I showed the car to complained vociferously about them and said they would break their fingernails.
Now, while the Peugeot 205 enjoyed great success, it did have a bit of a reputation for being flimsy. It tended to develop squeaks and rattles, and the crash repair boys take a dim view of its ability to absorb an impact. Peugeot were obviously keen that this perception didn't rub off on the new car. It's in fact a much sturdier body shell with more sound-deadening material in it, and they paid a great deal of attention to the way it's built. The dashboard, for instance, is assembled off the car and then inserted into the shell by robots to avoid shakes and rattles. It's a good-looking little car on the road. It appears wider than in fact it is, and it retains the 205 wheel-at-each-corner appeal. It's It's also very easy to drive, and already a lot of driving schools are looking at it with interest.
Peugeot say that fuel consumption is a major purchasing decision in this class. Sounds unlikely to me because most of the top small cars are very close together on consumption figures. While the 106 is good, it's not exactly light years ahead of the opposition. One thing they have changed, though, over the 205, they deleted that very useful 11-gallon tank and made this just 9.9. And I think that's a pity.
But don't run away with the idea that this is purely a town car. It performs admirably on the motorways. OK, it's a bit noisy at high speed with some engine boom and a fair bit of road noise, but I climbed out after a 200-mile cross-country run without feeling in the least stiff or cramped. It's a good, fun little car.
Part of the annual MOT, which will then cost £20.
There'll be 3 different pollution standards, depending on the car's age.
A-registration vehicles or newer will need to produce the least carbon monoxide.
For older cars, the limit is more forgiving.
The oldest vehicles need only pass a visual smoke test.
Most of us would be delighted with 50 to the gallon, but now a company claims one of its models has achieved over 100 mpg.
A Daihatsu Charade 1-litre turbo diesel was driven along the official Guinness Book of Records round Britain route with Australian police as observers.
It used just 35 gallons of diesel and averaged a stunning 103 miles to the gallon.
Why are all these people squeezing into a Renault Espace?
Well, if you watched Noel Edmonds' Motorfair 91 last Sunday, you'll know why. They're all members of the Williams team that supports Nigel Mansell. It was part of a competition to raise money for this year's Children in Need appeal.
We asked 2 questions. How many mechanics managed to get into the vehicle? And the answer was 30. Which team did Nigel drive for last season? Of course, that was Ferrari.
Nearly 8,000 people rang in. Steve and Angela Inwood from Woking win the prize of a day out at next year's British Grand Prix at Silverstone.
And now for news of another competition. Last week we asked you to match these 3 TV characters with the cars they might drive. This week we're adding 2 other names. Frank Spencer from Some Mothers Do Have 'Em and Rachel Ware from Trainer. Full details are in the new issue of Radio Times.
For nearly a decade, the 5 Series BMW was a widely admired symbol of the success-obsessed 80s. Boardroomed high flyers in their Armani suits admired the no-nonsense lines and butch aggressiveness. It became the executive chariot until a new, slippery-shaped model appeared in 1988.
The most remarkable thing about the old-shaped BMW 5 Series is it still looks $1 million, even though it's been superseded by a new model. Take a look at this one with its deep black paintwork and fat alloy wheels, and you have to admit, it still looks an impressive machine. But does buying a car like this require the resources of the Duke of Westminster? We took it to a shopping centre and asked a few passers-by how much they thought it cost.
£7,000?
Well, 15,000.
Probably about 20.
1,200, something like that. 12,000, sorry. Around about 7,000, I would say.
I don't know. £2,000? Don't know.
She may have been guessing, but she was in fact bang on. We did indeed buy this 83 520i for just £2,000. Someone else who knows a cheap BMW when he sees one is South London car dealer Andre Thorns, who rates them so highly he actually runs one.
These sort of cars are not old hat. They fit in anywhere, you know. You could go uptown and park this next to a Rolls Royce and feel quite comfortable and not think that, oh, he's got too much money, I'm parked behind him in my 5 Series. You're just as important as him in the 5 Series as he is in that Rolls Royce, because this is still a luxury car. This symbol means many things, and it means black man's wheels, brothers' motor wheels, it could mean anything, but to be quite honest, it means what you want it to mean, which is BMW, you know, and like I say, you fit in anywhere in this car. It has its own, it has its looks and it has its credibility cut out for itself, you know. It's a quite square and up-to-date gentleman's car.
Our old-shaped 5 Series won't be found in a plate glass BMW outfit. They're just too old. The best place is the classified ads. Colours sell cars, and the best for the 5 is Cinnabar Red. Go for strong colours like this one and some of the metallics, and avoid the Stalingrad greys and Channel crossing greens.
But the 5 Series needs more than just a strong colour to make it desirable. This is the bottom-of-the-range 518i, the least attractive specification because of the asthmatic 4-cylinder engine, steel wheels with hubcaps, and lack of electric windows and central locking. The 520i Lux over here, on the other hand, is the much better buy because it has the more robust 6-cylinder engine, the alloy wheels, the central locking, and the electric windows. Simply put, the more it's got, the more it's going to look and feel like a BMW should. And more importantly, when you come to sell a high-specification car like this, it's going to be a question of beating off eager buyers in groups of 16.
Mechanically, the car is a lot stronger than most. Listen out for a whining differential. You'll hear a drone from the back of the car. Camshafts wear on high-mileage examples. Listen for a ticking from the engine. And worn valve guides aren't unknown. Look for a puff of blue smoke between gear changes and on startup. And don't forget to insist on a full service history.
One small annoyance are the service interval warning lights, designed to tell you when your next service is due and keep you firmly joined at the hip with the BMW dealer network. Now, not surprisingly, BMW say that these lights have to be reset by a BMW dealer at dealer prices. They will, however, sell you a special resetting tool for some £300 if you want to do it yourself, or like us, you can go out and buy one of these tools for 34 quid. Simply plug it in, press the button for a few seconds, and presto, out go your warning lights. Alternatively, if you think 30 quid's too much, one BMW service manager we spoke to said he could put your lights out for a tenner.
Things we would recommend you do buy from BMW are safety parts like brake pads, shock absorbers, and steering bushes. You can't, on a car like this, afford to take risks.
Running a 5 Series needn't break the bank. There are plenty of independent specialists, like this one, who will sell you parts for your BMW at considerably less than you might think. Smash a rear light cluster in a car park, and a BMW dealer will relieve you of nearly £100. But here, the identical light cluster, made by the same people, but not in a BMW box, will cost you just £60.
You'll save the most on copy body panels. They may not have the precision of the Bavarian originals, but when your car's getting on in years, does it really matter? Similar savings can be had on trim parts like this grille section, or other infuriatingly expensive items like bumpers, badges, and rubbing strips.
And, perish the thought, should you ever come back to your 528 to find it neatly propped up on bricks without wheels, a new set of alloys from here would cost just £178. But from a BMW dealer, a new set of alloys weighs in at £890.
They may not be identical, but they'll do the job well enough. A usable 83 520i starts at around £1,750. A mint 86 528i can be had for as little as £5,000. But the real bargain is the 535i. It's a real 140-mile-an-hour Autobahn stormer, and at just £5,000, a lot cheaper than most people reckon. To see if the years had taken their toll, we took it to Bruntingthorpe Proving Ground.
Now, we wouldn't want you to try this at home since we're on a test track in supervised conditions, but just to give you an impression of how unburstable these old 5 Series are, this 535i, despite having 5 years and 60,000 miles under its belt, is still happily pulling 130 miles an hour in its stride. So, if you're looking for a robust and reliable, together-looking family saloon and you fancy a bit of street cred as well, then look no further than the old Shape 5 Series. You won't be disappointed.
On 40 Minutes next Thursday on BBC Two at 9:30, Jeremy Irons will present a poem by Heathcote Williams. It's called Autogeddon.
What do you mean I'm drunk? Of course I'm drunk. Only time I concentrate is when I'm drunk.
We're on holiday, so shut up and start enjoying yourselves.
I can do this bit of the journey in my sleep. You ever feel something's going to happen, and then it does? $17 million dead and counting. More than twice the number in the death camps. 18 times the count in Korea. 17 Vietnams. 130 times the kill at Hiroshima. 8,500 Ulsters. The 100 Years' War in a week. The Crusades in under 30 seconds. A humdrum Holocaust. The Third World War that nobody bothered to declare. If the Chinese geomancers were right, and this Earth is a living organism, the atmosphere obviously being its breath, oil could pass for its digestive juices, its cerebrospinal fluid, an essential bile, or even its lifeblood.
Within this elegant and eloquent and sometimes frightening prognosis, there is irrefutable fact, there is conjecture, and there is poetry. But the message seems to be clear. The car is a beast that may well one day consume the earth and all who dwell on it. A terrifying thought. But what would the world be like with no internal combustion engine? Would we let the house burn because there is no fire engine? Would we let our loved ones die because there is no vehicle to get them to the hospital? Would we let an Ethiopian starve because there is no truck to get the food from the port? And would we add 1 million or more to Britain's dole queues because there is no motor industry? There is no definite proof of global warming, and no one can say for sure just what is causing the hole in the ozone layer. But there is an inescapable fact. Cars do destroy people's lives. They do maim and they do kill. Or do they? Isn't it more likely to be the people who drive them? Now, Top Gear will continue to campaign for safer cars, but only you can make safer drivers. Autogeddon, next Thursday, BBC 2, 9:30.
There's something about islands and motorsport that go together. A certain rebelliousness of spirit, perhaps, which means that they escape the control of the authorities on the mainland. We all know about the Isle of Man, but the holiday island of Jersey also has a motorsporting pedigree. Not the largest of places, Jersey has 80,000 people and 80,000 cars squashed onto it. Many of them hire cars with their H number plates, which the locals call horror cars. In spite of all the traffic, the splendid Jersey Motorcycle and Light Car Club, dating back to 1920, organises 50 motorsports events a year.
Jersey's most ambitious motorsporting project took place just after the Second World War. While mainland Britain scrabbled around with petrol coupons, Jersey was recovering quickly from the German occupation, and world-class racing drivers of the day were attracted here to St Helier to compete on the promenade.
Jersey was the setting of the first international road race to be held on a British track, and 25 entrants get away to a roaring start, tearing into the first lap of 160 dangerous miles. British, French and Italian drivers jockey for position, with the Siamese colours of Prince Bureau well up among the leaders for the first few laps.
5 road races were held on the fast but somewhat undemanding circuit, but events were curtailed in the 50s after a tragic accident. This 1947 race, however, seemed a very jolly affair.
British hopes are pinned to number 7, the green Maserati, driven by Reg Parnell. And here he comes, flat out, a British winner. A fine performance, and Mrs. Parnell makes it a very happy ending.
One thing there's an abundance of on Jersey is sand, so it's not surprising that many of today's motorsport events are held on it. There's a whole variety of cars and classes, and races seem to be organised at the drop of a hat, or indeed at the drop of the tide. Rallying might come as something of a surprise, but for several years the tracks around the potato fields have echoed to the sound of cars on special stages. There are even nighttime navigation events, though you might wonder how you can get lost on a 5 by 10 mile island when you've lived there all your life. It's full regalia for the main rallying event, the annual Jersey Rally, where the public roads are closed just like in Corsica or on the Monte Carlo. This is of course all subject to permission being granted by the honorary constables in Jersey's various parishes, who find that most of the residents don't mind rally cars driving over their doorsteps. Occasionally, however, the scenery suffers. But it seems more a case of damaged pride than damaged people. Even for these two unfortunates. Definitely Jersey's biggest event is the Booley Bay Hill Climb, a round of the British National Hill Climb Championship that's held on the island every summer. It's a chance for the locals to show their prowess to the mainlanders. Hill climbing is one of the more bizarre branches of British motorsport. Events are held in various far-flung parts of the British Isles, and having travelled miles to get to the hill in question, you squirt up a narrow lane of about half a mile or so in as few seconds as possible. Bizarre behaviour it may be, but it definitely has its aficionados.
It's a very friendly sport. We don't wear cars out as quick as we do on circuits, for instance. I came from circuit racing into hill climbing, and obviously every weekend you was rebuilding engines, rebuilding gearboxes, the amount of wear and tear. This is a very specialised sport, as you can see, from racing from A to B as quick as you possibly can with whatever's in between. And it needs a lot of precision driving, and I think that's what appeals to me, is the fact is you've got to do a 10/10 run virtually every time, and then improve at the end of the day to do 11/10 run kind of thing.
There's no question that the width of the roads and the speeds of the car and the power and everything else of those engines is absolutely tremendous. I mean, you have to realise that it's like driving a car on a very, very slippery road with huge amounts of power. I mean, if you think about it, you talk about brake horsepower per tonne. I mean, that thing that I was driving has got 600 horsepower in the engine, and the car weighs just over 900 weight. So you're talking about 1,200 or 1,300 brake horse per tonne.
If you must go hill climbing, this is definitely the place to do it. Booley Bay is on the north of the island, and the climb starts down here among the lobster pots and cobbles and rises 500 feet in 1,011 yards. Now, to make life even more comfortable for the competitors, the start line is on the hotel doorstep, so all they had to do was fall out of bed this morning.
Joining in the island spirit were the Jersey Highways Department, who duly appeared to paint the start line just in the nick of time. Although there's not a lot of space available, the drivers attempt to warm their tyres for better grip, not least 4 times British champion Martin Griffiths from Worcestershire, to whom we attach the Top Gear camera. Although it's not the fastest or the steepest hill in the championship, it's certainly one of the most challenging, with fast sweeping bends and the odd curb thrown in on the closed public road. The cars are geared for a maximum speed of about 90 miles an hour for this hill. In spite of that, Martin uses only 2 gears, the engine revving up to about 11,000 RPM. The top drivers are allowed 2 practices and 3 timed runs. Positioning on the bends is vital. Take a tight line and you risk clobbering a rock on the inside. But take a wider line and there's an even more threatening outcrop to contend with on the other side.
How do you like this hill compared to the others in the championship?
Very much. I mean, the biggest significant difference is it's very much wider, and therefore you've got to think about the lines that you take much more than in a, say, a narrower hill climb like Shelsley Walsh. And I enjoy it very much because it's a thinking hill. I think you notice people going deeper into corners, staying out wider, longer. I think that's the secret to a quick time. I love it. It's very, very nice.
There's a whole assortment of machinery going up the hill, including motorbikes, many of which are ridden by locals. And there are classes for production cars like this Caterham Super Sprint. And when it comes to modified production cars, they don't come much more modified than this squash Skoda, definitely one of the fastest of its breed. Other folk choose to compete in more conventional racing cars.
Ex-Formula One cars used to be used in hill climbing a lot, but the ideal machines proved to be devices like this pill beam, which is virtually a hill climb special, though it does still bear more than a passing resemblance to a Formula One car. This is the car of twice British hill climb champion Roy Lane. It has a 4-litre 4DFL engine, which develops 550 brake horsepower, and with power like that, he can get up this hill in less than 40 seconds.
These large side pods use the airflow to help suck the car onto the road, the so-called ground effect. And this device isn't a handbrake, it cuts the timing beams, which are accurate to hundredths of a second. Not all the equipment is quite so up to date. This phone is German wartime army surplus. They're dotted up and down the hill and can be used in an emergency. This rider got back on and completed the hill. But these two gents on the combination, through a few deft movements, got to the top in 52 seconds. As the day wears on, there's pressure on competitors to beat their previous times. It can be their undoing. The honour of being the fastest Jersey man this year went to Ken Thompson with a time of 45 seconds. 5 seconds slower than Martin Griffiths, who didn't win here but went on to win the championship later. But overall fastest this year was another Midlander, Ray Rowan, with a time of 39.65 seconds.
With the hill climb over, the roads of Jersey can now return to more normal traffic. And that means those thousands of hire cars and more than a fair sprinkling of exotic and expensive machinery squeezing onto the narrow lanes and harbours. Cheerio!
In next week's Top Gear, the latest machines at the motorcycle show. A report on the dangers facing women alone on the road. And the V8 sports car from one of Britain's independent car makers.